All right, good evening, everyone. Let me welcome you to the Thursday, September the 7th, 2023, first budget public hearing for Orange County. I'm going to ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all very much. Since we just came off of our Labor Day holiday, welcome back. Tonight we will be conducting three separate public hearings. The first public hearing will be for our mandatory refuse program to adopt rate resolutions and exemptions. The second public hearing will be to adopt the non-ad valorem assessment roll, which is required for all assessments being levied for the first time. And the third public hearing is, and the last one is for tonight, will be to adopt Orange County's tentative millage rates and budget for the next fiscal year. As we begin this evening, I'm going to call on the County Administrator, Mr. Byron Brooks, for opening remarks. And with that, Mr. Brooks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. The purpose of tonight's public hearings is to consider and adopt tentative millages and budgets for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30th, 2024. The items to be considered tonight include mandatory refuse collection special assessment, non-ad valorem assessment roll, flat rate assessments for street lighting, fire hydrants, street paving, retention pond maintenance, and other MSBUs, the countywide base millage, municipal service taxing units for law enforcement, fire protection, and lake weed cleaning and navigation, and all other county budgets. The millages and budgets being considered for tentative adoption tonight are the end product of a two-day work session with the Board of County Commissioners in July of this year. Public notice of tonight's hearings has been provided via notice of proposed property taxes mailed to each property owner, as well as legal advertisements for the mandatory refuse and non-ad valorem assessments. At this time, I will ask Mayor Demings to call to order the Orange County mandatory refuse public hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. I will now call to order the mandatory refuse public hearing and call on Mr. David Gregory, the manager of the Solid Waste Division, to present remarks regarding rate and collection service changes for calendar year 2024. David, you are recognized at this time.
Good afternoon. Chapter 32 of the Orange County Code requires that the Board of County Commissioners pass a resolution annually setting the mandatory garbage and recycling rate to the citizens and an annual rate of compensation at the first budget hearing. In June, the board tentatively established a rate to the customer at $290, which is a $30 increase over this year, and the annual rate of compensation by zone based on the rate adjustment calculation as stipulated in the hauler agreements. These rates are listed in the resolution as the annual rate of compensation on a per household basis paid to the hauler providing solid waste and recycling collection services. Please note that these rates are an increase from the 2023 due to an increase in the CPI and the contract requirements. On the screen is shown the rate paid to each hauler by zone and also the MSBU rate to the customer. The average MSBU collection component is about $151 or $161.40. The average MSBU collection component cost is $161.94 for 2024. We request the board approval of the resolution establishing the MSBU rate and the annual rate of compensation for calendar year 2024.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gregory. With that, Mr. Peterson, are there any members of the public present who wish to be heard on the mandatory refuse rate collections?
Yes, Mayor. We have one speaker card here Mr. Todd Render.
Okay.
Mr. Render, could you please provide your name and address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
2, I was told 3. On that paper I signed out there, it said 3 minutes. Did it not say 3 minutes? Am I wrong? It said 3 minutes.
It's up to the
You just don't want to hear from
make
us. You
We'll
have
give
this
him 3
meeting at
minutes.
5:01 where people can't
All
come
right.
here.
Listen,
This is-
okay, we're gonna give you the opportunity to speak. All right, you can speak, go ahead.
I showed the gentlemen that were out there that work for this. I can show you pictures where today they were supposed to
Sir,
pick
can
up.
you state your name and address for the record and then proceed?
Todd Render, Crystal Creek, 2924 Crystal Creek Boulevard. Today they were supposed to pick up the recycling in my neighborhood. They didn't do it. They picked up about half. I showed the gentlemen the pictures. They did a terrible job. They've been doing a terrible job. When I called earlier in the year and I said, can I speak to somebody? No, I'm sorry, we're all working from home. You're working from home? What do you mean you're working from home? Because of COVID. COVID is 2023. It's 2023. You're going to say COVID? I'm a firefighter. I never got a single day off. My wife's a teacher. She's been in there for 2 years, and they want more money. They do a terrible job. I can show you pictures on my phone of what a terrible job that they're doing, and they want more money. This is absolutely absurd. And you have this meeting at 5:01 where people can't come here. I just got lucky and I was off today. This is you give me 3. You're saying going to give me 3 minutes. You give me 2 minutes because you really don't want to hear from us. You can't just keep taking money and taking money and taking money from people and giving people terrible service. Things are getting bad out there. You guys make $100,000 a year. I looked up the commissioners. They make like $94,000. So you make a lot more money than the majority of the people out here. The majority of the people are struggling. They're struggling. And you want to take more money all the time. People can't hardly pay their bills. They can't hardly buy their food and take more money for bad service. This is just, it's completely absurd to even talk about taking more money from us when you don't provide the services that you're supposed to. And people are working from home when they don't get their job done. This is completely absurd. 5:01, I just don't understand why you're having this meeting at 5:01, because most of the people are at work trying to get home. They can't get here on I-4 at 5:01 because you don't want to hear from us. And I'm sorry that I sound angry because I am. I showed those gentlemen the pictures. I wish I could put it up on the screen of how bad the service is. I have 2 homes. I own 2 homes. One of my houses where I live, I had about 4 or 5 palm fronds. I put at the other house, it's just 2 houses down, I put more palm fronds. They picked up today, they picked up one of them. They didn't pick up the other house. The houses are, it's my house, neighbor's house, my mom's house. Okay? They picked up the palm fronds in front of my house. They didn't pick up the ones in front of my mom's house. And they're literally 25, 35 feet apart from each other. They picked up one but didn't pick up the other. That's what I'm talking about. How bad the service is. If I did my job that bad, I'd be fired. And these people should be fired. But no, you're not going to fire them. You want more money. This is just, I'm sorry I keep on ranting, but this is just completely absurd that you don't want to hear from us. I've contacted you multiple times in emails, Ms. Wilson, multiple times over the last several days. All I'm asking for is to speak. That's it. So, but you don't want to hear from us.
All right, thank you for your comments, and I think we do want to hear from the public, and the reason why this meeting is at 5:01 is because statutorily we're required to start it at 5:01 for these types of public meetings. So,
What are the majority of people doing at 5 o'clock? They're getting off work.
it's still statutory, the reason we're doing this, so.
And Mayor, can I at least respond?
No, I don't want us to get into.
Okay, I was going to say, we did have an
response.
appointment, and he did not show.
That was a year ago, and I was a firefighter, and I worked 24 hours. We ran 17 calls
Mr.
that
Render.
night. I'm sorry that I fell asleep after running 17
Render.
calls and 911 calls.
Mr.
17
Render,
calls.
Mr. Render, are you listening? Okay. I'm asking her not to do that. We're out of time. Thank you for being here. However, let's make sure that a staff person, David, does get his contact information,
did.
and let's follow up
He
with
got
him.
my
Okay.
contact.
All right, thank
He
you.
got my contact,
All right,
but
we're going to move forward. Do we have any other speakers?
Mayor, I just want to clarify, there's a Gene Davis Peralt. Are you looking for the mandatory refuse or non-ad valorem assessment?
I'm sorry, but thank you very much. The question has been answered by Ann Dawkins, so there will be no question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No more comments, Mayor.
No other public comments at this time regarding the mandatory refuge. With that, is there a motion to adopt the
So moved,
mandatory
Scott.
refuge resolution, which includes a mandatory assessment rate of $290 per year? Is there a motion?
So move, Scott.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Scott. Is there a second?
Second, Wilson.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. A motion passes, and it is unanimous. At this time, I want to ask Mr. David Gregory to present staff and hearing officer recommendations for exemptions. And with that, Mr. Gregory, you're recognized.
Thank you. Each year, property owners are notified of the special assessment for mandatory garbage and recycling collection services. The Orange County Code allows for property owners to appeal this assessment and allows for exemptions based on circumstances and changes to the property use. Typically, staff recommends exemptions for properties that clearly fall under these conditions for exemption and refers the rest to a hearing officer. This year's hearing officer is Ms. Stephanie Bello, a local attorney who is present tonight to answer questions you may have about the appeals that were heard. The mayor and each commissioner have been provided with a booklet listing the exemption recommendations for calendar year 2024. Section 1 contains previously granted exemptions that have been reviewed by staff, have been determined to still meet the criteria, and are recommended for exemption again. Section 2 contains new requests for exemptions that have been investigated by staff and are recommended for exemption. There were no new exemptions in Section 2. Section 3 contains appeals heard by the hearing officer who has determined that they meet the criteria for exemption and recommends approval, and there were no appeals in Section 3. Section 4 lists appeals heard by the hearing officer who has determined that they do not meet the criteria for exemption and who recommended denials of the request, and there are no denials in Section 4. We request board approval of staff and hearing officer recommendations as listed in the booklet for exemptions from the mandatory garbage and recycling assessment for calendar year 2024.
All right, thank you. At this time, Mr. Peterson, do we have any members of the public who wish to be heard on the mandatory refuse public hearing exemptions only at this time?
No, Mayor, I've received no speaker cards on that.
Okay. If there are no members of the public that wish to be heard on that item, I will move forward. Then is there a motion to accept the staff and hearing officer recommendations concerning exemptions to mandatory assessment?
So moved, Scott.
Okay. We'll give the motioner to Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Scott, would you like to be the seconder on the motion?
Yes, Mayor.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes, and it is unanimous. Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the refuge public hearing and call to order at this time the non-ad valorem assessment roll public hearing, and we'll ask Mr. Kurt Peterson, our OMB director, to announce the non-ad valorem assessment roll information.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the regulations for the uniform method of levy, collection, and enforcement of non-ad valorem assessments, the county must adopt, subject to a public hearing, an assessment roll for all assessments being levied for the first time. This public hearing will also consider the adoption of non-ad valorem assessment roll, authorizing the tax collector to use the uniform method of collection of non-ad valorem assessments levied by the Orange County Board of County Commissioners as provided in Section 197.3632 of the Florida statutes. All affected property owners have been given the right to file written objections with the Orange County Board of County Commissioners, and at this public hearing have the right to give testimony.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard on the non-ad valorem assessment only?
Mayor, I've received no speaker cards.
Okay. With that, I would ask for a motion to adopt the non-ad valorem assessment roll as presented with the unit of measurement and the respective amounts by subdivision and/or parcel identification number as stated in the assessment roll. Is there a motion?
So moved, Wilson.
Second, Scott.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Scott. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes and it is unanimous. At this time, I will close the non-ad valorem assessment roll public hearing. We'll move forward on our agenda. I will now open the public hearing on the county's budget to include all millages and funds, and we'll call on Mr. Byron Brooks, the county administrator, for a brief budget remarks. Mr. Brooks, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Demmings. Very brief remarks. The fiscal year 2023-2024 budget reflects a balanced budget as discussed at the budget work session in July, with any necessary changes, including updated revenues and expenditure projections. Each commissioner has received the statement of changes package and was offered a briefing by staff. Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to call on Kurt Peterson, OMB Director, to announce the millage information.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The following tentative millage rates are hereby established and fixed for the following purposes and entities. The associated percentages are the percentages by which the millage rate adopted herein is more or less than the rollback millage rate for each of the following purposes and entities. The countywide millage rollback rate is 4.0387. The proposed millage is 4.4347, a 9.81% increase over the rollback rate. The unincorporated tax district rollback rate is 1.6464. The proposed millage is 1.8043, a 9.59% increase over the rollback rate. The fire and EMS rollback rate is 2.0475. The proposed millage is 2.2437, a 9.58% increase over the rollback rate. The OBT corridor improvement rollback rate is 0.5441. The proposed millage is 0.5932, a 9.02% increase over the rollback rate. The OBT neighborhoods improvement rollback rate is 0.2335. The proposed millage is 0.2554, a 9.38% increase over the rollback rate. The Orlando Central Park MST rollback rate is 1.0622. The proposed millage is 1.1549, a 8.73% increase over the rollback rate. The iDrive Master Transit rollback rate is 0.2156. The proposed millage is 0.2334, a 8.26% increase over the rollback rate. The iDrive bus service rollback rate is 0.6933. The proposed millage is 0.7523, a 8.51% increase over the rollback rate. The North iDrive improvement rollback rate is 0.1499. The proposed millage is 0.1601, a 6.8% increase over the rollback rate. The Apopka Vineland improvement rollback rate is 0.5575. The proposed millage is 0.6, a 7.62% increase over the rollback rate. The Bass Lake rollback rate is 1.3216. The proposed millage is 1.3872, a 4.96% increase over the rollback rate. The Big Sand Lake rollback rate is 0.1297. The proposed millage is 0.1378, a 6.25% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Holden rollback rate is 2.0 2.2406. The proposed millage is 2.5337, a 13.08% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Irma rollback rate is 0.5776. The proposed millage is 0.62, a 7.34% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Jean rollback rate is 0.0759. The proposed millage is 0.0410, a 45.98% decrease over the rollback rate. The Lake Jessamine rollback rate is 0.6142. The proposed millage is 0.6545, a 6.56% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Killarney rollback rate is 0.8001. The proposed millage is 0.8613, a 7.65% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Mary rollback rate is 2.6227. The proposed millage is 3.0, a 14.39% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Ola rollback rate is 1.8330. The proposed millage is 2.0, a 9.11% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Pickett rollback rate is 1.6879. The proposed millage is 1.7597, a 4.25% increase over the rollback rate. The Lake Price rollback rate is 1.0868. The proposed millage is 1.0719, a 1.3% or 1.37% decrease over the rollback rate. The Lake Rose rollback rate is 1.8249. The proposed millage is 1.5094, a 17.29% decrease over the rollback rate. The Lake Sioux millage is being reestablished, which is currently set at 0. The proposed millage is 1.25. The Little Lake Fairview rollback rate is 0.4480. The proposed millage is 0.5, a 11.61% increase over the rollback rate. The South Lake Fairview rollback rate is 0.1567. The proposed millage is 0.0171, a 89.09% decrease over the rollback rate. The Lake Conway Water Navigation rollback rate is 0.3806. The proposed millage is 0.5750, a 51.08% increase over the rollback rate. The Windermere Navigation rollback rate is 0.2327. The proposed millage is 0.2528, a 8.64% increase over the rollback rate. The aggregate millage rollback rate is 6.2393. The proposed millage is 6.6394, a 6.41% increase over the rollback rate. Mayor?
All right, you got through all 30 of them. With that, Mr. Peterson, are there members of the public present who wish to be heard on the millage and the budget? This is the only opportunity that the public will have to address the board on the millage and budget.
Yes, Mayor, we do have several speaker cards that if I can call you all to come up, I'm going to call 5 at a time. And please also put your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. First off, we have Emmer Roy, Michelle Suarez, Tara Felton, Samuel Delgado, and then Trini Juarez.
Hi there, I'm Emer Roy, and I didn't expect to be first. I thought I gave him my card about number 5. I'm a parent in the community. I live far out in the far east of Orange County, which is where we could afford to buy a house. And as well as being a parent, I'm a member of the disability community, and I also help parents of Orange County with education and health matters. Before COVID, myself and my husband were, comfortable. But we had 2 jobs, and I lost my job in COVID, and Robert's company moved out of town, so he had to take a lower paying government job, actually, lower than 94,000. But anyway, we didn't ever get back to the same thing, our situation is that, as well as COVID, in terms of economic impact, I got long COVID. And the long COVID affected my brain and it affected my heart. And so far, I've been able to afford to get all the testing done with my heart, but the co-pays are so high that, neurologically, it's parked. Let's just put it that way, and make light of the situation. A lot of people like me in my community and people I speak with as well, it's a question of, can you afford the copay or can you afford to eat? And coming up to payday, it's, we can't afford the copay, so medical debt is pretty huge. And I guess my ask is that I'm aware that there's federal funds from the American Recovery Plan. I can tell you personally that the Housing Assistance Fund, whatever the state did, the 18 months that people were entitled to, it was a little bit of shenanigans went on there, and things were parked for 6 months. I mentioned this to you before, Mrs. Bonilla. You remember me from about a year ago. And they've gone down in hiding right now, so I don't know where those funds went. But I do want to say, I'm a person in Orange County. I trust the county. I want you to not let unallocated funds go when there's people that are up to 300 or 400% of the poverty line that are in severe medical debt. It's affecting our homes, it's affecting our health, and it's affecting the level of stress. And, we've never, well, at least in my family, and I know many other families, we never recovered after the pandemic. It's still there. And the average debt in Orange County for families up to 400% of the poverty line is $1,000. I can tell you our family debt is well beyond that. And it's just a shame to me to hear that there's millions in federal funds that just simply aren't correctly allocated. I don't trust the state. I trust the county to do the right thing. So please do the right thing and allocate that money to the people that need it. Thank you.
All right, and I'm not sure if you gave us your address or not.
The address is Albion Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32833. Emer Roy is my name. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Roy. We'll move to the next speaker.
Michelle Suarez, name and address for the record.
Hi, commissioners. Hi, community. My name is Michelle Suarez. My pronouns are she and they, and my address is 3162 Little Sound Drive. So I've been part of this community in Orange County for the past 20 years. I've been doing community organizing with different organizations, and I am a business co-owner. And I'm also here to advocate for people in the community, including myself and my family, who have medical debt and who could really benefit from the American Rescue Plan funds to pay for it. I have medical debt of about $3,000 from different medical issues that I've been experiencing for the past years since the pandemic, which, as it has been mentioned and we all know, it has been extremely stressful and impactful. Although I do have medical insurance, my insurance hasn't covered for everything that I need. I don't have dental insurance, which has put me in a situation of medical debt. The situation has impacted my life in that I needed to get a root canal, and I had to wait 6 months to get it because I had to save money. So I was in physical pain and in mental health. It impacted my mental health. I had to take out a care credit card to be able to pay for my dental work and other health-related bills. Back in May, I missed some of the payments, and unfortunately, my care credit card was closed, which impacted my credit score. So, this speaks to a system of healthcare that is broken for most people in this country. Another medical story that I want to share is that of my father, who is a lab technician and works processing blood samples, including COVID. So literally, my father is a healthcare worker who has insurance and who's risking his life every day. And although he has insurance, he still has medical debt because the insurance doesn't cover for everything. So again, I'm here with other community members to ask you to relocate the use of the American Rescue Plan funds to free Orange County residents from the mental and financial burden of medical debt, especially for families like mine who are immigrants, who are working class, who have disabilities and chronic illnesses. This has been done in other counties across the nation, so it's not unheard of, including Cook County in Illinois, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and Toledo. And so I just wanted to end by saying that the more I do this work of advocacy and organizing, the more I understand it that it's about sustaining life. And it's about sustaining life of residents, the environment, and the overall community. So we're asking you today to please use that power to continue to help sustain people's lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Suarez. We're going to move to the next speaker, please.
Tara Felton, name and address for the record.
Hi, Tara Felton, pronouns they, them, 595 West Church Street. Hello, everybody. Like I said, my name is Tara. I'm a community organizer at Central Florida Jobs with Justice. We're a local coalition of workers, unions, and community groups that work collaboratively on issues that impact working Floridians. So when I was 17, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. As a working class family, this was not only devastating for us emotionally, but financially as well. My parents had to make a lot of tough decisions in order to keep basic needs met during this time. Decisions like my dad continuing to work through his treatments so his insurance could help offset the costs. Even with that, we quickly accumulated thousands in medical debt. And when my dad passed away, this debt still impacted our family for many years. The decisions families make to avoid medical debt and how to deal with the debt when they have it are brutal. This is unfortunately very common here in Orange County. 17% of residents have medical debt in collection. The challenge of medical debt is higher in Orange County than in the state of Florida or in the nation as a whole, with a significant impact on communities of color. Think of all the families and individuals right now in Orange County that are dealing with what my family went through. Wouldn't you want to help if you could? Luckily, you can. The county should use funding from the American Rescue Plan to resolve the issue of medical debt for Orange County residents. According to data reported by the Department of Treasury, as of December 2022, Orange County had more than $180 million in unobligated funds. I understand that y'all worked very quickly and effectively to budget the allocation in the initial stages of the pandemic to address the needs of the residents at that time. But times have changed since then. The challenging circumstances of the pandemic prevented full engagement from the public in that allocation process. So other local governments, as it's been said, including Cook County, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, etc., are currently using the ARPA funds to free residents from the harmful impacts of medical debt. And debt relief can be bought at a very steep discount. An investment of $100 can wipe out $10,000 in debt. Please reassess what programs you allocated funds from ARPA for and shift them to make medical debt relief a priority, since it is a priority of the residents that you serve. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Felton. We'll move to the next speaker, please.
Samuel Delgado, name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Samuel Delgado. I live at 605 East Concord Street in Orlando. I am also here as a representative of Central Florida Jobs with Justice. I'm here to, just as the folks who spoke before me, to ask the Commission to reallocate funds from Orange County's allotment in the state and local fiscal recovery budget assigned to Orange County through the American Rescue Plan. We're asking y'all to reallocate some of the funds that have gone unobligated, as you have until December of 2024 to finalize that process And from what we've seen from the latest Department of Treasury reports is that there's still a lot of resources on the table that we don't want to see go unused, because once that deadline passes, the federal government takes that funding back. And so, we want to see those resources go to our neighbors who need it and who are experiencing the burdens of medical debt. We've seen some of the devastating impacts that medical debt can have on people, from reporting cutting spending on food and other household needs, depleting their savings, and assuming other borrowing, just as my colleague Michelle mentioned, in taking a CARE credit card, which often has an interest rate of about 26%. So that can really damage your ability to rent a new place. It can damage your credit rating and create other obstacles, like maintaining your ability to obtain a mortgage or a car loan. And so, as my colleague before me mentioned, we really appreciate how quickly the county moved to identify what are some of the priorities that you could assign these funds to, but knowing that people weren't really able to easily access the public comments during the pandemic, or people just didn't really know about it. We're asking you all to reopen that discussion in the time that you have before the end of 2024 to assign those funds to help eliminate medical debt for low-income people here in Orange County. The counties like Cook County in Illinois, they used $12 million to eliminate almost $80 million of debt for people in the county, and that's a program that is still up and active. It's through an organization called RIP Medical Debt, and they've been working with local governments across the country. So, we want to see these resources be used in a way that helps people across the county. And we also have relationships with folks who have worked with RIP Medical Debt that can help talk through the process. So please feel free to reach out to us. My contact information, of course, is on the card. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Delgado. We'll move to the next speaker, please.
Trini Kuros.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It pains me every time I stand before a mic to speak on behalf of the people. My tears, I have to hold them back because that's what I feel like crying. It says here that government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, the safety, the prosperity, and happiness of the people, and not for the profit, the honor, or private interests of any one man, family, or class of men. This was said by a founding father and former President John Adams. It is amazing to see that the budget is almost $6,740,000,000 in moral. Just among the six of you and our mayor make $1 billion in salaries. This is what you were elected to do, to serve the people, to make them happy, to bring prosperity, and not to serve others who, for whatever reasons, are involved in that obscene word called greed. Greed and more greed. It pains me to see the homeless. Even if I'm not healthy, I have to be there and help them. Hungry, without health care, without anything. The streets are dirty. It's just, I don't know what is happening here, but you took a solemn oath. You know what it is to swear on a Bible that you will uphold that office that you are taking, for we elect you. It is something that it boggles my mind. I'm not here to accuse you. I am here to reason with you. You got to do whatever you need to do with intelligence, but remember, you are here to serve those who voted and have confidence in you. I have been a 30-year-long resident of Orange County. I've seen it all. but I had never seen it like the last 5 or 6 years. It's an abomination before the eyes of God to have thousands of homeless on the streets, children in the woods, and the medical facility and the other services, they don't do their job. I don't know what's going on in this county, but I know one thing. God is looking, and those who believe in God better understand that He is an avenger, and He will see you in the moment that you need to be reckoned with and say, what did I do with that trust that God empowered me or the people put me in? Make a reason. 740 million. There is no housing. There is nothing. So you be accountable to that. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to give the audience one warning. Okay, when we're in session, we do not want outward signs of noise or anything on one side of the issues or the others. If that happens again, we're going to have you escorted out. Okay. All right. With that, we'll move to the next speaker, please.
Mayor, we have 4 more speakers. Maria Bolton-Jobert, Terry Falho, Todd Render, and Noel Bruno. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. It's been a few months, maybe. Hi. Okay. Maria Bolton-Jobert, 1377 Page Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32806. City of Orlando resident, Orange County resident. Lived here, 27 years on and off. 41 years old, starting to look my age. All right. I am having a hard time following Trini because she will bring you to tears because she speaks a really hard truth, and we all are probably pretty aware of how bad it is. It's getting bad. This is in regards to medical debt. Trying to urge the board here tonight to use the American Rescue Plan funds to free some of the Orange County residents from the mental and financial burden of medical debt. I am in a privileged position. I am not asking this for me. I am asking for other people, and I am here to speak on that tonight. There are folks struggling, some much more than others for certain. Please help those who are steps away from being homeless. And as we all know, people of color and the LGBTQAI+ community, as well as other communities, have been historically marginalized. Though, yes, the state would like us not to talk about these issues, I'm sure. Go look up what redlining is and all kinds of gerrymandering and things like that. But we have to help those in need. It is my understanding that there is money currently sitting in the fund. If so, let us use that money now to help those in need. And I was told that you all did it last year, so let's make it happen again. And I know that you know this, but you all are the most progressive board that Orange County has ever seen. So if we are to have faith in this board, keep in touch with these folks, because this is a legacy group that will get stuff done. And I do have faith in you all. And I realize you can't make everybody happy. That's politics. You got to play politics. You got to get donations, especially if you're going to run for another office. We get that. We know how the game goes, and then you get your PACs and you get your money. But listen to the people, help the people. Let's help these folks out. And another thing, I haven't had 3 minutes in so long. Usually when I come to this thing, you guys, I got 2 minutes, 1 minute. I could talk forever. I'm half Italian. The budget. Myself and many others, they talk about it all the time, Sunrail. Let's get Sunrail to run on weekends. Let's figure it out. And I've said this before, shelters and benches, but also trash cans at the Lynx bus stops, because maybe you all don't know this, but I learned this a couple years ago. Litter begets litter. There's something like 10 to 15 seconds that a person on average wants to hold trash, and if they see trash on the ground, people don't want to carry it, they drop it. And then before you know it, an area looks disheveled. And before you know it, it invites other things that are undesirable, and then it ruins the whole neighborhood. And it affects everybody. And it's the mood, it's psychology, there's all these factors. We have to help every part of the community, which is what I know you all will do, because you do listen. And the Lynx bus stops help animal services. Too many dogs in the kennels, as you know, attacking each other. I'm waiting to see when the new shelter is going to be built. And just save the scrublands. We need to save the scrublands to mitigate for flooding and to help with aquifer recharge.
Thank you. You are out of time.
There's a lot of issues. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Terry. Name and address for the record.
Terry Falbo, 1038 Windswept Court, Ocoee. And I've also, that's where I am currently, but I've also lived in several other places in Orange County, including, on the east side, not just the west side. As I was growing up as a little girl, well, first of all, I just want to say when we started this meeting, what was the first thing we did? We put our hands over our hearts and we said the Pledge of Allegiance. And when I was a little girl growing up and saying that every day in school, and we had movies about what do all the words mean in the Pledge of Allegiance and what's the whole thought. And especially when I said the part for liberty and justice for all, it meant a lot to me. And that is really what has guided my life since then. I realized that might be kind of weird because when I talked to other people, they didn't remember that from elementary school, but that was me, and that's where I'm coming from. And so through my life, I've thought a lot about how do we ensure that people do have, and how do I participate in that to make sure that people do have liberty and justice for all. And when people are suffering from things like medical debt, can they really, when that's constantly on their mind, can they have that liberty and justice that is the promise of our country? And most other developed countries, I guess all of them, probably none of them have even such a thing as medical debt. They don't even know what we're talking about when we say that, okay? As far as economically developed countries. So I did have some. My mother had a lot of medical debt, and I used a lot of my retirement savings for that. So I'm not going to have the comfortable retirement that I thought I was going to have. During COVID, I did take out one of those care credit things too, and my son found out that I was paying that enormous interest rate, so he lent me the money, and I'm paying him back now. But a friend just sent me this the other day. He said, he has COVID really bad, and he said, I can't even go to the hospital. I've lost all my retirement savings over the years, all because of America's medical establishment criminals. This cost me $4,000 from the last hospital stay. I missed one payment, and they quickly sent it to collections. And, that just broke my heart from him. So, again, I'm also urging that commissioners find a way, if at all possible, to use that money from the American Rescue Plan and the state and local fiscal recovery funds. And I thank you all, and I hope that you will join the efforts with all of us in creating a healthier and more prosperous community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Falbo. We'll move to the next speaker, please.
Todd Render, name and address for the record.
My name's Todd Render. The address is 2924 Crystal Creek Boulevard. From what I'm hearing everyone saying, things are bad. Things are hard. Here's a quote from our Vice President Harris on August 9th, 2023. Most Americans, Harris told her audience, are $400 unexpected expenses away from bankruptcy. In Chicago 4 days earlier, she said the same thing, virtually word for word. Average Americans are $400 of unexpected expenses away from bankruptcy. Once again, that's August 9th, 2023. I don't know what all that millage stuff you're talking about. I'm just a dumb firefighter. I put wet stuff on the red stuff. But all I know is when you take the millage up, it takes more money out of people's pockets. And things are not good. Things are not good. More taxes means less money. This is right, less money. If people are $400 away from bankruptcy, and you guys always just want to take more money out. I'm telling you right now, before I was a firefighter, I was an Orange County public school teacher. And everyone wants to say more money for the school, more money for the schools. I'm telling you right now, I saw hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars of wasted money constantly wasted money, a taxpayer's money, and it's not spent correctly. Instead of taking more money from people that are $400 away from bankruptcy, and all these people are talking about how bad things are, I didn't hear one speaker come up here and say, things are great. Everything's great. I just know one group of people that make a lot more money than the average Orange County public or Orange County residents, and these are the people right up here, and things are not good. You think they are, they're not. In my neighborhood in Crystal Creek, just a short time ago, houses were going for almost $500,000 in my neighborhood, almost $500,000 the same day. Right now, there's a house for sale in our neighborhood. It's a nice house. I know it's a nice house because the poor lady that used to live there, she couldn't get her mail, she couldn't put her garbage out, and I did that for her. Right now, she's in assisted living. She's trying to sell her house. She had it up for $450,000, which I thought it was going to go like that because the other houses were going for almost $500,000 and selling the same day, just a few months ago. Now, her house has been on the market for 2 months. She's had to lower it down from $450,000 down to $430,000, and I think it's just got lowered again, but I wasn't able to pull it up. Things are not as good as you think they are. They're not. Things are turning around, and they're going downhill fast. And taking more money out of people's pockets is not the answer. Taking more taxpayer money is not the answer. People are hurting. It's hard for people. I think all these people are telling you things are hurting. So taking more taxes and more taxes and more taxes, it's not the answer. Spending the money correctly is the answer. I'm telling you right now, Orange County Public Schools waste money constantly. Constant waste of money. The money is not spent correctly. One time I was there, I got a few minutes, they put in a new mashed potato machine. And I said, why are you guys putting a new mashed potato machine in? We got mashed potato today. We have mashed potatoes. And the guy looked at me, he goes, every school's getting a new mashed potato machine. And for what? There was no reason in it. Just, we got to spend money. We got to spend that money. Tax people and spend money.
All right, thank you, Mr. Render. We'll move to the next speaker, please.
Noel Bruno. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Noelle Bruno. My address is 1305 Nevada Avenue, Orlando, Florida. I live there and swing that mortgage by myself. I'm divorced. And first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity and for your patience in listening and your active listening.
Ms.
to
Bruno,
all of
for
us.
the purposes of the record, because I see you have an OCPS shirt on, can you tell us, are you speaking in your personal capacity or representing?
Personal, I came from work. I'm so sorry. And you have a good eye. Anyways, if you can hear me. On page 1 of the booklet that I was reading, it says on the third paragraph that during the pandemic era, our economy has come back strong and we are thriving. That Orange County's most important and largest revenue source in the budget is the property tax, up 12.5%. Is that correct? It doesn't really sound like we're thriving, and I believe that the average increase in home value has been about 5% yearly. But on page, so 12% seems a little excessive. And then on page 7, we have a comparison of millage. And the comparison goes to 2007 and with the 2024 proposed showing a change. 2007 is an interesting time to pick because that was the housing bubble when things were very, very high and we could tax based on that high value. But wages were not keeping up with that or the property taxes. And what happened immediately afterwards was a lot of foreclosures, a lot of empty houses, home values all plummeted. If this 12.5 is excessive for a lot of people, they will probably have to sell, and it will be a setback and then a great opportunity for developers to come in and build apartments. We know that there is a shortage for homes, so affordable housing. And so I guess I'm just asking, what do you want the future of Orlando to look like? Do you want it to look like people who go to school here and support the schools and vote for those sorts of things, who stay here for a long time, all these people who've heard here who voted for you? Is that what you want it to look like? Or do you want the housing values to be boomed up by these people who have moved in from other states who can afford to buy a $500,000 home? Because in San Francisco, they made $130,000 or $180,000 a year, or people from Miami whose average is that high as well, who can come up and take our homes. What do you want it to look like? Because 2024 compared to 2007 is a very accurate and appropriate comparison. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bruno. The next speaker, please.
Mayor, I have no more speaker cards.
Okay. If there are no other members of the public who wish to be heard at this time, then we'll move forward. I'll call for a motion to adopt the millage resolution. Is there a motion? Question? Commissioner Bonilla.
Yeah, I have a question about some of the hospitals have funding for people who, in order to pay the bills of those who can't afford it. I'm wondering what's happening to that funding. And this is before what we had approved, where it's another item that the hospitals asked to tax themselves so that they could use that money to help people who can't afford their medical bills, which is another program that they started, separate from the first one I just mentioned. So I'm just curious of what is going on with all of that.
Commissioner, you might recall that not too long ago we did have a briefing before the board about the special hospital district taxation and how that was going. So you are correct that all of the hospitals will tell you that they do write off a certain amount of debt each year that is owed by patients who are either underinsured or uninsured, but we don't have that answer here today. It's not part of our specific budget presentation today. What we can do is we'll go back and pull the information that was provided to us previously, and we can ask for an update.
Yes, Mayor. In fact, Lisa Sneed is making the rounds now because we have that item coming back to the board, actually about 2 weeks, I think, in the next couple of weeks, with respect to that, probably the DPP and LIP program. And the hospitals have provided that information in terms of that use, but primarily Medicaid, as well as to offset costs for loss as well. But that's you'll be hearing more in the next 2 weeks, as well as I know I think she's had a chance to brief some commissioners and some others. She's trying to get on your calendars with the others.
Okay, I guess I'll get with the hospitals because there's also another program not related to that where they do get funding and have funding to be able to zero out people's medical debt if they can't afford it.
What they will all will tell you is that it doesn't cover all of the dollars that's owed. What they do receive doesn't cover it.
Mayor, for the benefit of Commissioner Bonilla and the members of the public who are listening and watching, I can say, just speaking to Orlando Health, which I think is one of the largest healthcare providers, but also other providers, generally, if you do have a significant amount of medical debt, the patient responsibility portion, usually they will reach out and let you know. There's a form you fill out. It's 1 or 2 pages. I know because I filled out that same form and was able to get medical charges forgiven or removed entirely, being a victim of a crime. And so they absolutely do it. It's just a matter of some patients have to ask. Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't, but they do it independent of anything that we do. So to answer your question, they do it. At least Orlando Health does. But Mayor, we can.
They all do it, but pursuant to what the county administrator was saying, that'll be coming back, and we'll have specific details at that time.
Okay, so I do have more questions. So someone was saying that we had $180 million of unused ARPA funds. Can we get that information corrected?
Okay, and that's, our funding pursuant to action that has been taken by the board is allocated. But when sometimes there's from the point that the award is made to the point that we actually expend the dollars, we're pulling down dollars all the time. And this board has made decisions historically when we have allocated dollars consistent with what the federal guidelines require. And in some cases, because those guidelines have been stringent over time, the federal government, Congress has made some modifications to those guidelines to expand the eligibility for the use of those funds, and then we play catch up. So sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and so with the wisdom of Congress, sometimes when they have made some decisions to allocate dollars either directly. Fortunately, we are a large government. We have had direct allocations, other allocations of federal funds have gone through the state, and in some cases, the state of Florida has been the actual facilitator of funds that came from the federal government pursuant to COVID, CARES Act, ARPA funds, other dollars on behalf of the county. And then in some cases, we have been the direct benefactors of the funds. And so sometimes when you go on some of the federal websites, you'll see something that may say Orange County, but it may not always be the funds that the county itself has direct responsibility for. But those funds that are within our budget, that's something that we can give you through the Office of Management and Budget, through Mr. Peterson's office, an update on where we are. And when we see that we do not expend the dollars once the board has decided to allocate it pursuant to the statutory requirements, we bring that back to this board and we have reallocated the dollars. We don't intend to leave any of the funds on the table, and so we can certainly get the board an update for all of you. And so actually during the budget presentations, part of what OMB did, they went over some of this with you at the time. And Kurt, if you want to.
Well, Mayor, just to answer also her question, where the resident pulled that information from, we have to do a federal reporting every quarter. And so what in that reporting, they show unobligated funds, meaning we haven't expended it or encumbered that like with a contract yet. It's all been allocated in the budget for programs and projects. It's just on the federal forms, we have to show every quarter what's unobligated, what we haven't actually formally spent or encumbered yet. That's what that resident was referring to, that federal reporting form.
And as you mentioned, Mayor, for a good example, we have some projects, some community centers that are in design stage or in the pre-concept stage. We know the dates and very well of the dates, but the draw, so we have our schedule in terms of what the draw is as well. But we can, we have that. We track very closely so we can provide exactly where we are with the funds and provide that to the commissioners.
And I don't want the public to not understand what we're saying here. There are priorities for the use of any of those dollars that we still have to follow the guidelines. And we may have to make adjustments from time to time, but when we look at the overall needs of our community, the Board of County Commission has to wrestle with what the priority will be. Where can we leverage those dollars? Who's in the greatest need within our community? And the needs are great. And so we heard those of you who came to speak tonight talking about medical debt. That's one of many of the issues that our residents wrestle with, but they wrestle with a lot of other issues as well. So thank you for your comments.
Mayor?
Yes, I just wanted to remind the public, too, a lot of that funding was going to homelessness and housing and to help with some of those issues. And food, yeah.
Yeah, well.
So a lot of different needs that the community has.
Went to people to help keep them in their houses, to pay their rent, for them to buy food. We invested in job skills training and development so that people could learn a skill in a short period of time to earn greater wages. We partner with different community-based organizations to do that. So it's a very comprehensive thing that has been done over time, probably too enormous to fully talk about at this point. But Commissioner Wilson does have a question, so we'll recognize you at the
No,
time.
you know what, I so appreciate that we're getting a chance to kind of make sure that we're getting some of this information out and then continuing to get that information out. I do think there's been some misperceptions even about the millage rate. I know it's very difficult to understand the rollback, but that when we talk about the rollback, that does not mean that our millage rate is going up. And quite frankly, it's lower than it was in 2007 now. And so just to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're doing, if, I know that people are paying potentially higher, that may mean the assessed value of whatever that property is has gone up. But what we have put in place as a millage has not. So that's really an important thing for you to understand.
Okay, with that, is there a motion for approval of the millage resolution at this time?
So move, Scott.
Is there a second?
Second more.
We have a motion and a second. The seconder was Commissioner Moore. If the clerk didn't hear it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes, and it is unanimous. All right, with that, we're going to move forward on our agenda, and this is a motion to adopt the budget resolution.
Yeah, Mayor, let me announce the budget first.
Yes, I forgot.
Okay. The proposed budget for fiscal year 2023-24 is $6,740,219,418, a 6.2% decrease from the current fiscal year modified budget.
All right, and that is the proposed budget. Any questions by the members of the board? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So move, Scott.
We have a motion by Commissioner Scott. Is there a second?
Second, Wilson.
We have a second by Commissioner Wilson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes, and it is unanimous. Before we conclude this evening's meeting, as a reminder, the second and final public hearing on the county's budget is scheduled for Thursday, September 21st, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. With that, if there's no other business before the board at this time, we do stand adjourned. Thank you for your presence.